Welcome to a very special episode of Couch Surfing in honor of the release of El Camino. We're looking back at the best of Breaking Bad season by season. Joining me on my journey through the mean streets of Albuquerque are Aaron Paul and Jesse Plemons. Hey guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
Really good.
You ready to surf?
Yeah, we are ready to surf.
I think I know what that means.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You're about to find out.
All right.
Let's do it.
Tell me why you're doing this. Seriously.
Yeah.
Why do you do it?
Money?
I mean,
This was my audition scene, or one of, and I think this was the first dialogue scene we actually shot. Brian and I, way back in the day.
how old were you when you shot this pilot? I mean, you look like...
I mean, I haven't really aged.
You have not at all, actually.
That's a
Kidding.
lie.
No, you have
That
not.
is a lie. Look, I'm a baby.
You are a baby. You're a fetus.
I think I'm 27. Yeah.
And did that little fetus know that this show would change his life?
That little fetus was just happy to have a job.
Yes.
You know. Yeah, I was at the lowest point in my career when I booked Breaking Bad. I could not figure out how I was going to pay my bills, and yeah, Breaking Bad really changed everything.
And Jesse, you were filming Friday Night Lights, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Were you a fan of Breaking Bad by then?
I was one of the few people that hadn't seen the show.
Are you serious?
I got
What
the
was
audition.
the address of the rock that you were living under?
Yeah, I know. It was a big one. I hadn't seen the show, and it was sort of a dry spell. And then I got this audition, and you know, my friends were really excited, but it was a dummy scene. It didn't end up making it into the show, and it was one of those auditions that was like so good to have some good material, and so I really didn't think I would get the part. I didn't think about it, and then a few days later was, all right, you got it, you're going to Albuquerque tomorrow. And then I was there for about a week and a half or 2 weeks before I started shooting, so I just binge watched the show in this tiny little hotel room in Albuquerque, and then met Aaron and Brian in the thick of the show. So I mean, all I saw was Jesse and Walt, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the two people to meet.
Yeah.
Yes. So Aaron, you mentioned that you actually auditioned for the show with that scene.
Yes.
Let's take a look at that special moment, shall
Oh
we?
God.
Oh, the
Oh no,
audition
no.
thing.
See, this is terrible.
I wish we would have kept the hair, man.
I mean, look at the hair.
Really
I
good.
slicked it back in the bathroom like the last minute. I mean, look at that.
Jesse doesn't need fingers on his gloves.
Yeah, right? No, see,
Yeah.
Jesse is,
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I don't know. It's so funny because you don't know really who this guy's going to be post the pilot.
When Vince gave you that second scene to work on, did you have a feeling that things were going well, that it could potentially be yours?
When he had me come back in and read the scene, I found out on the way to my car that I was testing for the show, and then I tested against 3 other guys, and I knew it was really between me and this other guy. Penn Badgley was one of the guys that was testing, and then it was so long ago that I'm blanking on the 2 other guys. I did not recognize them at the time, but this other guy just really, I mean, right when he walked in, I was like, oh my God, that guy looks like a meth addict, you know, in a good way. Like he was like
Handsome.
yeah. I mean, he was just like in the role, you know. I was like, oh my God, this guy's gonna steal it from me. But after the test, it took about 2 weeks for them to finally let me know. Usually after you test,
Right.
you find out fairly quickly, and this was during pilot season. I was desperate. I'm like,
Longest 2 weeks of your life.
yeah, and the moment I heard everyone just talking before they told me, I knew I had landed the job.
You
but-
can tell immediately by the tone of their voice.
Oh yeah,
right?
the moment, yeah.
What does
yeah.
that sound like? What's that tone sound like, Jesse?
Well, you know when someone has good news or bad news.
That's
you know
Right,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's
But sometimes they try to fake you out just for the fun of it because they like toying with your emotions.
God,
I've
no.
never had.
That would be
That's just me.
That'd be terrible.
Sorry.
Yeah, and if that's your reps doing that, they're not real. They won't be your reps for that long.
Welcome back to Couchsurfing. I'm still here with Aaron Paul and Jesse Plemons. Aaron, Jesse, shall we continue?
Sure,
Let's
yeah.
do it.
All right, let's do it.
Put the keys in to like let you know that the battery's on. I know that.
Oh.
It didn't buzz.
Okay, we have to talk about the RV.
This is on a stage right
Okay.
here. So this is on a stage, and that's green screen outside. And so there was a stage RV, one, and then there was two mobile RVs, just in case one broke down.
Got you.
And this stage RV, the sides and the front and the back all you were able to move them to get different camera angles. But this episode is actually my favorite episode in the entire series. It's called 4 Days Out. It really felt kind of just like a two-man play in a way. Brian and I in the middle of the desert, just desperately trying to kind of
Survive the elements.
survive the elements.
What season is this?
This is season 2. This is the first episode that Michelle McLaren directed, actually.
I was going to ask you if it felt like you were shooting a short film, but I think a play is actually more accurate.
Yeah, and it's just the experience I had with Brian. I mean, look at that man.
Freeze frame.
He asks, "How did it taste? Bad, huh?"
And the events of this episode are directly related to a key scene in El Camino.
When I read that in El Camino, I placed it right away. You know, they were just so happy to be alive. You know, this scene with Jesse in the bathtub pouring ice on himself. I knew it, obviously it was a flashback. I go, oh, this has got to be during 4 Days Out, which is so great.
We must keep surfing.
Yes, let's
Up
surf.
next.
Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. Oh, baby, we like it raw. Yes, baby, we like it raw.
Oh my God.
Please tell me shooting this was as fun as it looks.
It was pretty ridiculous just to see Jesse and his. I mean, look at this guy.
You look pretty methy there.
I look pretty methy. Oh my God, look at that eye. The thing with that eye, actually, at the end of the first day we shot with this particular eye, I had something that went into my eye. I didn't know what it was, but this took so long to put on, and I just kept scratching.
prosthetic eye?
Prosthetic. I kept scratching at my eye, and they're like, well, we could shut down production, take off the piece and clean out your eye, or we just fight through it. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to do that. Let's just fight through it. But I just kept like scratching at my eye, and what it was an eyelash that had flipped underneath my eyelid. And they had a medic when they took off the prosthetic at the end of the night. I opened up my eye. I'm like, oh my God, it was just the nastiest looking mucus inside of my eye because of one single eyelash. Isn't that gross?
It's pretty gross.
You're a
pro, you
beautiful,
handled it.
I handled it. Some
Jesse's
beautiful
like-
behind the scenes,
That actually dovetails with my next question because one
Really?
of the wonderful things about
Really does it?
mucus.
Yeah.
One of the wonderful things about this show is that you can have these extremely intense moments fraught with drama, and then you can have a really existential laugh out loud moment.
Yeah.
What was it like for you balancing those different polarized energies?
I mean, it was just so much fun. I mean, if it was nothing but drama, it'd be very, very dramatic,
Right.
obviously. But it's nice to break it up with humor, and we did that on set as well. We were doing really heavy, crazy scenes, and then.
So off camera, I would imagine there had to be moments of
Or on
levity.
camera, we would just completely waste takes. We'd do a very heavy scene, and Brian would pull out what looked like a dildo out of his jacket and start squirting me with a squirt gun that was shaped like a penis. It's just like out of nowhere. I'm like, what are you doing? Brian, I always say this, he's the most professional / immature person you've ever met in your life.
Up until action, through rolling,
Oh, yeah.
he's joking
around.
and then action, and he's
just
waltz
in it.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Did you have a dildo water pistol pulled out on you?
No, we weren't that close, I guess. Yeah.
Well, there's still time.
Just admit it. Admit what you did. Admit it. I did not do this. Shut up.
And what's so messed up about this scene is he did do it.
He did
and he's
do it.
just lying to this guy who's just going through just so much, obviously. But he's so good at manipulating. And he was that way since the pilot, Walt. I mean, he's just a
playing,
liar, and look at him.
That.
Genius.
Stop.
This scene was actually, we could not figure out the blocking of the scene.
Oh, really? What was the difficulty?
It just, I don't know. We actually worked our way up to almost lunchtime and still hadn't, I don't think we even rolled. We just were hammering out just beat by beat by beat. It was a long hill to climb to get to what we see here.
Well, it paid off. Talk to me about the evolution of your relationship on screen and off screen with Brian. Because you see the character go from just being ex-student to fellow kingpins to the dissolution of this union. But what was the trajectory of your relationship off camera?
I mean, from the moment I met Brian, I knew I was gonna love this guy, and I had, I knew a guy, Chris Masterson, who worked with him for years on Malcolm,
That's right.
and he said, "Look, run to whatever set Brian's on, because he's just the greatest guy to work with, and you'll absolutely love him." And so we instantly became pretty close. But by the end of the first season, I realized, this guy is my mentor. I learned so much from him on screen and off, and what it's like to be a leader on a show, and the responsibilities you have when you are the number one on a call sheet. And
Right.
he just does it with such
What was the
grace.
most valuable
He's
life
just
lesson
so,
or career lesson?
Be immature whenever you can, But to be honest, it's it's valuable. It's nice to just make sure to know everyone's name on set, know the crew, eat in the lunchbox with everybody. And just it quickly becomes your family, and it's up to you to make that happen or not, and at least for your own self.
All right, up next.
Yeah. Okay. What is this? Oh. Yes.
Do you do your own stunts?
That's
I mean,
me.
That's
No, it's
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It was like,
But you were up there.
40.
You were the.
I was
on top, right? Yeah. I love this thing going up and down this damn thing.
how
Got my
many
work
times
cut
we
in.
did that?
I love this
That
episode.
takes CrossFit to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Just reading this script was one of the most stressful reads I've ever had. It was
Really?
just-
Why?
These writers are just so incredible, and I don't know, they have a way of dangling little bits of information, even in the exposition and the stage
Yeah.
direction, and you're just on the edge of your seat. Reading it, you could see it so clearly. Oh no.
How was
Oh,
Todd?
this
okay.
is just when I read this.
I can't.
Yeah, you gotta-
I know. It's
When
it's
I read this
tough.
poor little kid doing this little wave. I remember him just keep waving.
He
like
had it
that.
coming, man.
And look at you. You're like, you
have
know
it
what?
coming.
You wave. What a psychopath.
No.
Oh man. But you know what? You solved the situation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. You really saved our asses.
All I had to base the character on was a tiny little breakdown that was attached to that scene that I was telling you about that I auditioned with, which said he's like fresh-faced, eager, innocuous, but with something to hide. That was all I had, and then I had this other scene, and then the first episode where he's introduced, he's just sort of helping out. He gives him a tip about a camera in this house. And then I got this script and was just thinking, holy shit, like how am I supposed to do this without any understanding of who this guy is. And I was just saying backstage, I was cornering every writer to try and get something out of them.
Yeah.
And
To
no
try to-
one would say anything, but they would look at me as if I were Todd. So they were looking at me like, really scared, and I had no idea why.
Got you.
And then right before we shot that scene, I said, Vince, you have to give me something. I have no idea what I'm doing or who this guy is.
And what did he say? What did he give you?
He said, he was like, you know when you're driving and a raccoon runs out in front of your car, and if you swerve to the right, you run into the ditch, and if you swerve to the left, you hit an oncoming car. It's like, well, what do?
You run over the raccoon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is, until the second season, that was kind of the foundation for Todd.
Welcome back. We're still surfing through the best of Breaking Bad with Aaron Paul and Jesse Plemons. You guys ready to see what's next?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I think so. Let's see.
Let's do it.
Me and him, we
Okay, so this is arguably one of the most
history.
tense scenes in television history.
Man,
Yes.
this whole thing. And then just watching you do this scene, there's just other things that they have in store for Jesse while being held captive.
Also, Hank had just died,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that
I mean,
was-
he's laying dead.
Yeah.
And him and Gomi, just laying dead. And so this is just when I read this moment, I didn't know if Jesse was ever going to find out that Wall had a big hand in allowing Jane to die.
Yes.
I mean, he could have saved her. And he says this to him right now, but oh my God, what a just brutal, evil thing to.
Well, and Uncle Jack too in the mix. He's just Michael Bowen, such an incredible actor.
Yeah.
And he was someone that you couldn't always tell. He sort of stayed in a version of the character most times. I mean, he even wore the Uncle Jack costume home through the airport. Which
Yeah. Didn't
I
he?
think
Was he the one that had the
swastika on his
swastikas
neck.
on his neck?
So
It's never a
he
good
was in
look.
How
deep.
was that received?
I think he was heavily searched, but
Damn.
I'm guessing he had to explain that he was an actor. But he's, one of the more committed actors I've worked with.
Ready to keep surfing?
So
Yeah.
Right.
On the way home, I was gonna
exactly the same.
get us
It's
some
crazy.
pizza,
This was one of the most beautiful
large pies.
locations I've ever shot at. The Painted Desert in Arizona.
This was one of those days, I don't even really know how to explain it, but it's rare when you're working to sort of be able to step outside of yourself. And it was just because of the location, because of how great the scene was, because of how great Aaron was. Every little detail, down to the broom that I was using,
Everything.
was just so spot on that it was just such a fun day.
Yeah.
And one I will never forget. And we actually got to fly into this
On a
location.
helicopter that Vince piloted. He's an incredible
He
helicopter
flies
pilot.
planes?
Yeah, he
Helicopters.
helicopters. Yeah, an incredible pilot. But it really felt like such a rock star moment. And Plemons comes walking off the helicopter with his guitar in hand. He's an incredible musician.
Now, Breaking Bad fans are obviously thrilled about this film, but did you all have any reservations about it at all? Any apprehension about?
I thought Breaking Bad ended perfectly.
Right.
And so why follow.
And the critics
with.
agreed.
Yeah, and
So-
it was perfect, but we're dealing with Vince Gilligan here. Like, he's not going to just tell a story to tell a story, you know.
He's not going to fleabag the situation
No,
and
he's
walk
not.
away.
No, he's not going to mess with the legacy that is Breaking Bad. I mean, he's the last person that wants to tarnish that. You know,
Right.
he puts
But he-
so much pressure on himself, and so when he floated this idea, this is years ago now. You know, 3 years ago now, asked me if I was interested in playing Pinkman again. I thought, of course, well, this must be for Better Call Saul. He's like, no, I don't, you know, actually, I think I've cracked an arc of a story that follows Jesse after Breaking Bad. And I'm like, oh, wow.
How long had he been massaging this idea?
It's just something that
working on
he's been
this?
thinking about for some time. And so before he had pen to paper, he wanted to see if I was interested in diving into that world again, that guy again. And he told me right away, he's like, look, I'm not going to do this film if it's not any good, you know. Let me write the script, I'll get back to you. And if it's great, then we'll do it. If not, it won't happen. You know, and that was it. About 7 months later, he finished the script and he invited me to read it. And I said, how is it? And you could hear, again, you could hear the excitement. He was excited, you know. And
excited.
to hear Vince excited about something, that is a very, very, very good sign.
Aaron, Jesse, thank you so much for surfing by. El Camino and the entire series of Breaking Bad are both streaming on Netflix right now. And see you next week on Couch Surfing. Bye.